I literally got told, yeah, you're done. 2 years of medical school just down the drain. Going through that, it's very, very hard. And I was definitely depressed then. Hello guys, welcome back to my channel. I'm going to be doing a story time today about how I got kicked out of King's College London Medical School, how I dealt with it, and lessons I learned along the way. I was a bit nervous about making this video just because it's sort of embarrassing saying you got kicked out of medical school, and it's also like quite sensitive and personal to me, but I thought I should share this story to sort of encourage someone out there. I know there's always someone going through a difficult time, and if this can inspire you or encourage you in some way, I feel like I'd be very, very happy. So let's start with the basics, okay? I got into King's College London Medical School in 2009 September. I remember when I got my conditional offer of 3 A's and I found I got the grades, and I was so happy. Like, you couldn't tell me nothing. Like, my whole family was happy, I was happy, my friends were happy. Basically, it was just such a proud moment in my life. So yeah, good news. I started first year. First year was fine. Kind of, I mean, you know how freshers year is really. Everyone's really just partying and having fun, and it's not too difficult. So it was pretty straightforward. I was ready for second year. I was like, bring it on, baby. I'm ready, you know, for this second challenge, but I didn't know what was coming for me. I had no idea. It's the end of year exams around, I think it's May time or so. Found out I passed my theory exams. I think there were 2 or 3 of them. I passed them fine. I found out I failed my OSCE exam, which is a practical exam. What I did not know back then was that practical exams like the OSCE, it's not about reading, it's about practicing with friends. And that is something I did not do. And I remember when I found out, my heart sank, but I still hadn't processed it. Like, it wasn't like I thought, oh yeah, okay, I failed, but that means I'm probably going to have to retake the year, like second year again. And I'll work really hard this time. I'll make sure I take my life more serious. That was the worst case scenario. I mean, the worst thing I was thinking about was I'll be behind my classmates, but that's fine. I'll work hard and whatever, as long as I graduate. Guys, what happened to me was much, much worse. I literally got told, yeah, you're done. You can't continue here anymore. And I was like, what? As per, like, just get out, you're trash. That's how I felt. 2 years of medical school, just down the drain, nothing to show for it. I don't get any paperwork to say, okay, like this is a certificate of something. I appealed, they rejected it. Basically, my personal circumstances were not enough to excuse my failure. I don't remember the last time I felt pain like that in my life. Like, going through that, it's very, very hard. I just remember how much I cried. I begged God, just give me one more chance. I know I'm not giving this my everything, but it just wasn't the case, and I had to leave, and I was stuck at home in London by myself because my family's in Nigeria. And I was definitely depressed then. I had really, really dark thoughts. When I was at home, it was then I really started to get very concerned about how I was going to tell my parents. I decided to start with my mom. I told her. My mom was crying. Only Nigerians might understand this, but it's embarrassing. Like, you know, parents always think in Nigeria, what would people say? And it's the last thing you want to think about as a child, but that's what I think my mom was worrying about as well. Anyway, we got over that, and she decided that we should tell my dad once I confirmed the plan. Like, she didn't want us to tell my dad and we wouldn't just have any idea what was happening next. My dad would call me, and sometimes I would not pick up the phone because I was just tired of lying that King's was going well. Like, he would ask me, like, how's everything? What did you learn? And I would just make things up. You know, my parents were really proud that I was going to be a doctor, and it was much more than me. I just felt like I was disappointing everyone around me because I had never ever had any problems with school prior. At some point during that year at home, God told me that I was more than what had happened to me. And I had failed at something, but I was not a failure. And I thought about that every day. And the first thing I did when trying to sort out my problems was to sit down and reflect on what had happened to me. I confronted the reason. I was like, Nosa, why did you fail? Right? And this was when I acknowledged the fact that I had failed because I was not giving my studies enough attention. I spent far more time enjoying being a student than actually being a student. I guess in retrospect, I was too immature at 18 to give the level of dedication that medicine as a degree required. I promised myself that if God gave me the opportunity again to get into medical school, it doesn't matter where, I would not ever waste it. I would work as hard as I could, and I would make sure that my studies would always be priority in my life, not relationships, not turning up with friends. Next thing for me was to try and transfer to another medical school in the UK. I frantically called up a few places, and they told me that they were not going to accept people like myself, basically because I had failed medical school. If you guys do not know, if you fail medical school in the UK, you can't go into another medical school here. Because if I was still going to be a doctor, I had to go outside the country. So I started researching. I looked at different countries. I looked at places in Europe, and my heart finally settled on St. George's, Grenada. I chose it because, first of all, it had a good reputation, and it also gave me the opportunity to spend 50% of my medical training in the US or UK. That was very attractive because I didn't want to go to a completely different country for like 5 whole years. When I applied, I still had not said a word to my dad about getting kicked out. My dad, I think, was getting a bit suspicious because he was thinking, how come I've not gotten an invoice for your school fees, you know? And I was like, oh, I'll get it down to you, Dad, I'll get it down to you. Anyway, I applied to St. George's University, and I did an interview, personal statement, all that stuff, and I got in. And when I got in, I just knelt down and I was thanking God. I was like, God, thank you. The thing with St. George's, though, is I had to start from scratch because I had A-level. So I got a conditional offer to do the 4-year medicine degree, but they said because I had no degree like other American students, then they were going to ask me to do 1 pre-med year, which is what I did, and then get a pass mark of 70%, and then I would get automatic entry into their medical program. So that went fine. I did that pre-med year in Northumbria University in the UK, and then I did my first year of medicine in Northumbria as well. During my first year at medical school, St. George's, I now told my dad that I had failed. Dad was like a general, and he did not cry. I had never seen him cry before, but when I told him I failed, he cried on the phone. It still hurts me till today because my dad, he was blaming himself, and I just didn't understand. I was thinking, it's not your fault. It's not anybody's fault. It's my fault. I didn't work as hard as I should have. My dad supported me anyway and told me he loved me, paid my school fees, and said that he was happy I had found, secured another place. But I could tell he was hurting and he was disappointed as well. So first year at St. George's was in Northumbria in the UK, and it was a very intense environment, fairly competitive as well. And because I have the UK, King's College and St. George's Grenada to compare in terms of first year, I definitely think St. George's was more intense. We had assessments more frequently, but the difference was that I was more dedicated this time. I was more focused. I was like, there's no way on this earth I'm going to fail again. Anyway, first year went fine. Second year, took a plane to Grenada with my mom and my sister. They escorted me, turned it into a mini holiday, and we had such a great time for the first few days before I settled in. And yeah, Grenada is such a beautiful place. I really liked it. Very small, safe, and teaching was good as well. Going to the beach was I didn't go that often, but when I went, it was just being on holiday. It was really nice. The only main downside for me with Grenada was how far it was from everyone. Grenada is far from Nigeria, it's far from London where I know people. But if you want something, you're willing to make sacrifices temporarily for them. Finished second year in Grenada, flew back to the UK for third year, did my clinical rotations in London. Then I flew back to Grenada for fourth year. The only main challenging thing I experienced in Grenada was when, a few months before my final exams of medical school, that my dad had passed away. My dad that had been with me, been there for me throughout, just passed away, and just before I could make him proud. This happened in March. I was graduating in June. So I was really upset. Guys, one of the things that kept me going in school was just imagining my dad's face when he sees me graduating. Every time anyone would come to our house, most people, my dad would be like, oh, I have a daughter that's a doctor. He was very proud. And your parents do so much for you that you want to make them proud too. Before I knew it, I was on a flight back to Nigeria from Grenada, We buried him. He had a befitting burial. That's one thing that makes me happy. And I left and I came back to Grenada and started studying for my exams because I knew that was what he would have wanted. My dad would not have wanted me to, you know, have to spend longer in medical school again or even get kicked out again because of what happened to him. So there's something my dad said to me when I failed the first time. He was, destiny can be delayed, but it cannot be denied. I just thought I should conclude this video with talking about the life lessons I learned along the way to, you know, becoming a doctor now. I learned to take responsibility for my actions. I failed at King's because I wasn't giving enough attention to my studies. I learned perseverance on my journey as well. I learned that, like, if you fail at something, pick yourself up and keep going no matter what. Like, nothing good comes easy. Another thing I learned was humility. I was never a proud person, but I think I kind of had this, you know, I mean, I got into medical school in the UK and I got my 3 A's and, like, I've never failed before, so I ain't gonna fail ever. And, like, no, anyone can fail. And I think it was very important for me to realize that if you don't work hard for something, you are setting yourself up for failure. And the last lesson I learned was the end of the battle is not the end of the war. I might have failed at my venture at King's College London, but I did not fail at becoming a doctor. I want to believe I'm a good doctor today. I'm practicing, and I want to believe that I'm a better doctor than I would have ever been if I had graduated from King's, just because I'm a different person now. Thank you guys for watching my video. Thank you guys for staying till the end. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, please consider subscribing. If you guys have any questions or videos you'd like me to do next, please comment down below or just share any of your experiences at failing university or anything at all. See you guys in my next video. Bye.